Welcome, Nicolas Hulscher. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Um, so, you are an epidemiologist. You have your master in public health. You have masters in public health, and you have also published a number of papers. I have noticed that one of them even is censored and suppressed. So it's very interesting. I want to get to the vaccines, the virus itself. But before we move on to that, I want to know what was the turning point for you? Because I'm sure, just like all the doctors and experts in this field, I'm sure you had, in the beginning, you must have believed that the vaccines are going to save us, that it is very important for the pandemic. What was the point when you started seeing a different picture?
You mean me personally,
Yes, you
or just in
personally.
general? Me personally. So
You.
actually, I'm gonna tell the truth with that. Even before the vaccines came out, I was totally against them. I actually had a post on Reddit before they came out. I called them IHNVs, intracellular hijacking nanotechnology viruses. That's what
Wait, do
I
you mean
called them.
the COVID vaccines, or do you mean the vaccines in general?
COVID vaccines.
COVID, okay. So even before the vaccines were, manufactured, you already knew?
But before the COVID vaccine, once they released how the COVID vaccines worked, is what I would say. So once they started putting out on all the news channels, like, oh, this is how Pfizer's gonna work. It's gonna instruct your cells to make spike protein using mRNA. That scared me off immediately, and I was like, no, 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 I'm not gonna get that. I think it's gonna be terrible. And I did actually put a post out before all this happened. So I've never had trust in this. I had grave suspicions that the entire COVID crisis and response was at least somewhat planned in accordance with that Event 201 and
What's an
what
Event 201?
Event 201 is a pandemic tabletop exercise that was held by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with Johns Hopkins University. This was only a few months before COVID-19 began.
When?
And
When was
so
it?
this was in, I believe, October of 2019. And
2019. Okay.
they practiced what would happen with a SARS or a coronavirus pandemic 2 months before the real one happened. So that's just what they do. They like to hold these drills before certain things take place. They had all the business leaders, all the top corporations were there. So they were prepared for this.
Interesting, because in January 2020, like, we people, at least in Germany, we didn't even care. We didn't even that we heard that remotely somewhere that there's a vaccine. Nobody wanted even to wear masks. Nobody was even worried. And this is January. I think things started getting serious in March. So if they had that round table in October, that's already a bit suspicious, isn't it? Okay.
It's very suspicious. Yes. Yes,
Okay, so you
exactly.
didn't have a turning point. Okay, so you knew from the very beginning. So you are very rare in a sense, because I don't think I have ever met anybody who knew from the very beginning. Even the doctors, they had, even some of them to this day, they believe that the vaccines saved us. Okay, so let's look into this. I want to get into that paper, but before that, there's this how I found you on X is this post. So we have um, this tweet by Professor Peter Hotez, right? PhD. He says COVID vaccines saved more than 14 million lives globally. And there's link below, and it leads to another a paper, which I will show as well, and put it in the description, the link. And otherwise, I mean, there are, he says, tragically 20 million people lives we lost, and it would be great if we had more vaccines. So to this, you have replied. So that's this, his tweet, and then you say it's false. You're saying that COVID-19 injections are estimated to have killed upwards of 17 million people globally. That's a huge number. Mainly because I think we have, how many people? We have 7 million people. I think 7 million people estimated to have passed away because of the COVID-19 itself, because of the virus, about 7 million. But if we have 17 million people who died of the vaccines, that's absolutely crazy. It's additional 10 million people just because of the vaccines that were supposed to help us from severe disease, that was supposed to help us from hospitalization, that was supposed to help us not to die because of COVID, that was supposed to help us from not transmitting COVID among each other. So this vaccine, that's a savior, killed 17 million people. Can you tell me, how did you find out? How did you come to that conclusion?
So this 17 million figure is actually derived from a paper. The first author is Dennis Rancourt. And what he found, he looked at the southern hemisphere and estimated the excess mortality in those southern countries. And he was able to extrapolate worldwide and correlate with vaccinations that actually 17 million people by September of 2023 died because of the shots. And that is actually that's a moderate estimate. The number is probably even higher than that, because that was in September of 2023, and he had some conservative estimates there. But so that's just one source. If we look in the vaccine adverse events reporting system, right now there's over 30,000 reports of death. So these are reports usually provided by healthcare professionals, doctors, pharmaceutical companies that believe the vaccine caused the death of the patient. So there's 30,000 of those deaths, and only 1% of adverse events are reported into VAERS. So there's a paper by Dr. Jessica Rose published. She found an underreporting factor of 31, and that's a conservative underreporting factor. So if we multiply 31 by 30,000, we get around 600,000 deaths or over 600,000 in the United States alone, and even more than that, we're nearing about 1 million just from the reports and VAERS with an underreporting factor, a conservative one. So it's we're basically we're in the millions here, and worldwide the number of 17 million is not unexpected. And like you said, they said they're going to protect you from disease. They said they'll reduce your hospitalizations, reduce your risk of death. Now, quite frankly, it's the absolute opposite. Now we have 5 studies, one from the CDC. There's another one from the Cleveland Clinic showing increased risks in those vaccinated against COVID-19, increased risk of infection. So it actually, once the antibodies wear off, they're more likely to get infected than those who are not vaccinated. And those are very credible studies. You know, they're not. It's not just like, oh, one study showing that in some obscure journal. No, it's been demonstrated, and so they don't work. They do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. And in my post quoting Peter Hotez, I laid out 12 studies that show this excess mortality in vaccinated individuals. The most recent one was published 2 weeks ago. They found a doubling risk of death, so you're twice as likely to die if you got COVID and you were vaccinated. You were twice as likely to die in the long term compared to unvaccinated individuals. So that was most recently, and there's just so many studies now correlating the onset of vaccination programs to these excess deaths that we've seen worldwide. So Peter Hotez, he's just ignoring basically all of the data that we're saying, and he's just calling us conspiracy theorists and just posting one study that claims 14 million lives were saved, which is just using some theoretical modeling, some nonsense. And I believe that's not true at all. And it could have saved some lives from COVID specifically early on when we had serious variants, but it probably killed much more than it saved from COVID.
Yeah. So I wanted to look into that. So this is what Peter Hotez, that's the study that he is referring to. That's the one that he says that saved lives. So we have like this estimate rose to 9.8 million people. And when we go to at the end, so this is, I will also link it for, I don't know, maybe people want to look into it. So can you actually tell me, can you see, because I don't have two monitors. Can you see the
Yeah, I can see.
declaration of interests, right?
Yes.
So it says that this is the people who wrote this paper, and ACG has received personal consultancy fees from HSBC, GlaxoSmithKline, and World Health Organization. So the people who wrote this paper, they received consultancy fees from these people and also from the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And one of the main private donors for this fund are Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So given that what we already know, and when you know that papers like these are, I mean, indirectly, when Bill Gates funds papers like this, indirectly, then obviously you have questions. And then you have questions, obviously, about people like PhDs. These are all PhDs, Master of Science. These are very educated and smart people. So do you have any explanation how you have a different and these people have a different findings?
Yeah, so these authors, as you just laid out, the funders of this study and people who were indirectly involved, these authors probably did receive a large sum of money. And they were obviously told, listen, you got to show the vaccines are saved a bunch of lives. This study will be huge. It'll increase vaccine uptake. And we have to also realize that those that did receive um, that were fully vaccinated received all their booster doses on schedule won't believe that there were negative effects of the vaccinations. It's very hard for some people to break out of this basically mental prison, to understand that there are risks of the product they took 8 doses of, and there's massive risks. They don't want to believe that, and I understand it's hard to understand. You may have put yourself at massive risk and increased your risks of death and multiple diseases and cancer. It's very hard to come to terms with that for people that got so many doses. So I think that's another reason. And not, but at this point now, that was a few years ago. At this point, there's just so much data showing the exact opposite of that. And at this point, I'm not sure how a product that increases your risk of COVID infection is going to save lives from it. I just don't see how that's possible.
You also found that if you are vaccinated, then you have 121% more times. How can you explain that?
So this was published in the journal Curious, and what they found was the more doses you got, the more that booster injections, you're higher the risk of COVID-19 infection. And so it was just the more doses you get, it goes up dose dependently, the more likely you are to get infected. So that's what that found. It went up to 121%. And this corroborates the study published by Shrestha et al. In the from the Cleveland Clinic. They also found a dose-dependent increase in risk of infection. So, but they actually found higher increases at the Cleveland Clinic. Theirs went up to about, I think, 250% for those that got 5 doses or 6 doses. So, so this new study is actually a bit lower than what we could expect, but it's still consistent with the other study.
It's a huge numbers. So when they're telling us, "Get your booster, get your second dose, get your third dose," they're basically trolling us at this point.
Right, right. They're basically trolling us, and if we see that in the United States, the Health and Human Services is operating a propaganda campaign called "Risk Less, Do More," and they're pumping out on their YouTube channel. They've got over 100 videos now in the past few months, trying to get people vaccinated, trying to get pregnant women to go get it.
That's the one that makes me really angry. Every time when I see, "Oh, it's safe, go and get," it's so c and VAERS, there are actually data on miscarriages and stillbirth that is spiked. I will, share it as well. It's just spiked, stillbirths and miscarriages right when the, 2020 December when the, injections they started injecting us. Okay, I also wanted to ask you about the, I think this is obviously we're talking about death and this is very serious, but your studies also found that COVID-19 vaccines cause depression and mental health issues. This is also quite important these days.
Yeah, so regarding the mental health um, issues here, there's a bunch of things that we have to look at now. There's multiple studies showing disastrous effects on the neurological system and for psychiatric diseases. And so, and I'll give a list of what they increase your risk of. They increase your risk of Alzheimer's. That's when basically that's what happens at the end of life for so many old people. And it's absolutely catastrophic to see a parent or grandparent go through that, basically forget everything. They might even forget who their own kid is. The injections increase the risk of that, I believe, by around 20%, but don't quote me on that. And then we had cognitive impairment. They increase your risk of that by over 100%. That's also very concerning. And then depression, increased risk of that, increased risk of anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, and basically the list goes on and on and on. And but it's not just psychiatric. It also increases your risk of ischemic stroke, of hemorrhagic stroke, myelitis, which is spinal cord inflammation. So I mean, it's just destroying your neurological system, and we understand probably why this happens is because of the prefusion stabilized spike protein that your body produces from the mRNA in the vaccinations. This spike protein has now been found at autopsy in both humans and animals in experimental tests. This spike protein is found in brain tissues. It's found in the cerebral spinal fluid. It's found in the casing around the brain. It's found in the spinal cord. It's basically found everywhere, and it's directly correlated and associated with tissue damage. In rats, you inject them with this spike protein. It makes them basically get horrible brain damage. It's bad. It's
Can
very
I ask,
bad.
so why, probably it's not your field of expertise, but why does a vaccine need why for vaccine to work, you need spike protein?
Exactly. It's a great question as to why they decided to use spike protein for these vaccines. It's probably the worst idea they possibly could have had. They picked one of the most toxic proteins in the world they could have used. They could have used the nucleocapsid of the virus, which is just the that's just the base of it. They could have used that. They could have used any other component, but they decided to use the most toxic one. And yeah, that's a great question. It almost seems as if they wanted to harm people. Who knows? But that's what it almost seems like because, and they even admit that it's a bad idea. Even some of these vaccine guys that keep pushing them, they even say, "Oh, we shouldn't use spike next time. We should use something else because it keeps mutating." So yeah, great question. And great question of why they're still doing it because we have a research library published on our Courageous Discourse Substack. You can find it, the spike protein pathogenicity library. It shows there's over 300 studies that show that just spike protein alone is dangerous and toxic to humans.
And this was very well known and established before the pandemic. So
Yeah,
they knew.
correct.
So it was known that it was the worst protein to use anywhere else. And this was the chosen one. And there are no explanation why. Is there any justification or any explanation why they decided to use it? Because there's two companies, Moderna and Pfizer. So it's not just one out of 10 decides to use it. It's just two major ones are using this, or maybe others as well. I don't know. But the Moderna and Pfizer are the ones that definitely use it. Is there any justification behind that? Do they explain it? Maybe it's efficient. I don't know.
No, they really don't give any real explanation as to why they picked the spike over the other components. I mean, I guess they would say because it's more effective at preventing infection. That's what they would say, but that's never been proven. There's no studies comparing which component would do the best. But it's not actually. It's not just Pfizer and Moderna. It's all of the shots, even the
Oh, really?
inactivated, yeah, even the inactivated protein ones by Novavax, by Sinopharm, which is in China, I believe, and Asia. They all use spike protein still. Just
But
they,
isn't it suspicious? Isn't it weird and suspicious? Why are they all using the most toxic protein that should not be using? Why all of them are using it? I mean, or is there like a parent company that dictates? Is it known? I don't know how it works.
well, like the military, the U.S. military and DARPA helped develop Moderna and Pfizer, their platform. So I don't think Pfizer and Moderna are the top of the food chain when it comes to this. So yeah, it seems as if parts of the military had something to do with this. We saw that with Operation Warp Speed. Warpspeed was the initiative back in 2020 to make the vaccines for COVID-19 as fast as humanly
Wow.
possible. But this was headed by the military, and so they have a deep role in the production of these vaccines, and there's probably some negative aspects, some negative people in that operation that
Oh,
for all.
military. This is very new. I had no idea that military was involved.
Yeah, yeah, they were instrumental in the production of these vaccines.
Okay.
Robert F. Kennedy has said that actually multiple times now in the past year. He also says the same thing. So yeah, Pfizer and Moderna are almost just frontmen. They just got the vaccine, but regardless, if we see Alberto Borla, the Pfizer CEO, he's still telling everybody to go get these shots, and apparently I've heard that he hasn't gotten any of them. So these heads of these companies, uh, we're at a point now where we could almost call it criminal, and they're all committing crimes now, distributing weapons that are killing so many people.
And the problem and the thing is not only that they're all it just seems like there's a collusion because if there's a collusion, for example, your paper being censored, who is censoring it? Who's behind it? Why is it censored? I'm going to show it a bit later. And also, why can't we this video I definitely am not going to publish on YouTube because I have one warning, one strike, and if I publish this, it definitely they're going to completely delete my channel. So there's a collusion going on, and obviously if we're not going to talk about this, if you cannot talk about it on Facebook, if you cannot talk about it anywhere on one of the major platforms, and there's nothing going on TV or in major papers, how is this information going to get to the masses? That's my worry. And
We're just moving on and trying to forget about everything basically. And you're right, this information needs to reach the mainstream. It's just not getting there. None of these new studies are making it to the mainstream media. Absolutely none. There's almost they're just intentionally holding off because these studies are pretty damning. Even especially our recent one, the one where we demonstrated that the vaccines cause death. That was published. We collected 325 autopsies that were all published in the literature, and we found that 73.9% of them were due to the vaccine. And so this is already enough deaths. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, there we go. Um,
I, I actually
Go on.
saw this one on Dr. Campbell. He has a big YouTube channel, and he seems to be able to navigate the YouTube censorship, which I don't seem to be able to do. So I'm really glad that he's managing to do it, and he has the patience. So the first time I saw it there, but the problem is, let's look at this. What happened? So you post this, and then I see. So I was not able to find it for a while. If it was not for Dr. Campbell and like checking the notes, the show notes, I wouldn't be able to find it, because every time when you search, even if you search with ChatGPT, what happens is you only see this version. See? Withdrawn.
Yeah, so I can explain what happened with this the first time out. So not only did we spend, so actually, first off, we got this paper in the preprint server in June of 2023 in the Lancet preprint server. And so once it was in that Lancet server, it was getting upwards of tens of thousands of downloads in one day, just one day. And they get it off, they nuke it, they withdraw it from a preprint server. Like, that's unheard of. They get it out, they don't even leave the PDF. So that was gone within 24 hours of it being posted on the preprint server.
Warp speeds, military speed.
Yes, military speed. Somebody called them, wanted them to get it off there as soon as possible. But we circumvented that. We got it on the Zenodo European Commission preprint server. So that's where it was up for a while. And then we finally got it published in a PubMed Index National Library of Medicine journal, Forensic Science International, in June 2024. And so that was huge. We looked at the research, International Research Observatory website, and we found out once our paper was published there, it was actually the #1 most accessed study in the world in the past 2 weeks out of all subject categories. So people wanted to know the truth. They wanted to know that the vaccines can kill people. That's it. That's all they wanted to know. They wanted vital, critical safety data, and that's it. There's nothing wrong with that. And what else would you expect would happen? Basically, right after that, after it started just getting all this attention, they wiped it. They withdrew it. They claimed that our methodology was bad. There's nothing wrong with our methodology. That's a whole thing we can talk
about. So they say inappropriate citation of references, inappropriate design of methodology. So all these seem to be like technicalities, errors, misrepresentation, and lack of factual support. This is very important, though. This is an accusation that is, I think that could really a bit, sounds serious. Errors in misrepresentation, lack of factual support. What can you say about that?
So the first thing we have to look at is who did the so-called post-publication review. It's 2 anonymous people, so we have no clue who they are. Yeah, they don't tell us.
So there's no basis for this. It's just throwing the information out.
Yeah, this could have easily been a member of the biopharmaceutical complex, somebody that just wanted to get this paper off. They could say whatever they wanted.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and they claim our methodology was bad because we had independent adjudication. So we actually, in some of the cases, our conclusion of the cause of death was different than the authors. But I'll explain why there's nothing wrong with that. And actually, that has to happen because as a novel injection comes out, right? You don't know all the effects. You don't know that it can cause myocarditis. We didn't know that right away. We didn't know it could cause stroke. We didn't know it could cause massive blood clotting in the body. And so a lot of these autopsies were published before we knew anything. And so, of course, the conclusions of those studies were, yeah, we don't know. It's not the vaccine. He just magically died the few days after, but the vaccine wasn't the cause. So that's what a lot of these say. And now we know we conducted the adjudication about 3 years after the injection rollout. So we utilized knowledge using the VAERS system, using what has been now previously been demonstrated of the syndromes that the vaccine can cause. And that's how we adjudicated. And that's basically the only way you can with a novel product.
Okay, so why are they saying that there's lack of factual support?
That's just some made up claim. They like to use these claims. It actually makes no sense. I mean, we literally scavenged the entire literature for these autopsies. They were all peer reviewed and published in the National Library of Medicine. I'm not sure what the lack of factual support is. Actually, every single source reference in our paper is backed up. It's peer reviewed.
And this is
I'm not sure why they say that, to be honest.
okay. Well, I'll also link it. Your study, the original one, censored article, your paper, and so everyone can go and check for themselves. Because as you have seen in the withdrawn one, they're just saying it, and there's no information. They just point this out, and for anybody who doesn't really go into it and research, it's not clear right away that it's baseless, that these claims are baseless. So I think that paper is very, very important, and I also shared it in my other video as well. I think it's super important to talk about it as much as possible. Now I want to talk about the virus, because this is something that really puzzles me, because I'm not vaccinated. And the reason why I'm not vaccinated, I think, is because I really got sick because of the virus. The virus itself really messed me up. It caused brain inflammation, heart inflammation. So because I was so sick, I started looking into it. And by the time that vaccines were ready, I already knew a lot. I knew a lot not to take the vaccines by that time. So I'm kind of thankful on one hand that I got really sick because of the virus. But on the other hand, you're just like, nobody seems to be talking it, because there are two parties. Vaccines are bad, vaccines are good. And I don't see anybody who actually says viruses did really kill people. Okay, there are people who had comorbidities, they had certain they were from different age groups, but I was young. Well, I mean, I was in my what's called middle ages. English is not my first language, so I don't know. So I was not the most healthiest, but it really messed me up. Why do you think it happened? What is this virus doing?
So I will say this: the very first variant that came out, that was, uh, I think, intentionally released from Wuhan, or could have been another area actually. But so this first variant, Alpha variant, was absolutely terrible. I mean, this variant did cause, like you said, you felt horrible. I felt horrible when I got it. Actually, my dad got it. He got a pulmonary embolism, was hospitalized. And I know so many people that were just terribly affected early on in the pandemic by this bioweapon. And so the likely reason is because it's not, first of all, it's not natural. This was concocted in a lab. They basically just took these coronaviruses, modified, I believe, the spike proteins on it. So it's not natural. It's synthetic, and it just replicates and replicates, and the spike protein accumulates, gets in vital organ systems. Like you said, gets in the brain, gets in the heart, and
So the
er,
natural virus also had spike protein, but it was not the same like in the vaccine. Can you tell me what's the difference?
yeah, vaccine spike protein. Or let's start with the virus. Virus spike protein. So it's just basically like we'll imagine it like a spike. The spike will go in and attach to your. So this will be this will be a cell. So the spike attaches to your cell, and then it kind of breaks in half. So in order to enter the cell, so the spike protein is in two pieces with the virus. When it attaches to your cell, it breaks in half. It's two pieces, both S1 segment and S2 segment. So it's not completely together. With the vaccine, your body produces just the full length one with both S1 and the S2 segment. So it's bigger, it's longer. It probably causes more damage than the viral version. But that's something that's really never been tested at all. So we just suspect that, well, this full length, um, forcefully put together version from the vaccine is probably worse than the viral version. So over time, the virus mutated. Now it went into Omicron, first detected in South Africa, and ever since then, it's been pretty mild in most people. It's not causing these catastrophic blood clotting events. It's not causing this heart inflammation. So it's become a much more mild illness over time. But yeah, the early variants were very bad. And I know there's a lot of people that believe there was no virus at all. It was all completely fake. They used PCR tests to fake all the cases. But I can't get behind that theory because there's literally, and I've looked, there's thousands now, thousands of published studies. There's hundreds and hundreds of laboratories across the world that are working with these viruses. I mean, they're not just working with make believe stuff. They're not all just making up what they're doing. And the genome of SARS-CoV-2. I mean, it's online, and they're experimentally infecting animals with it. I mean, it's not a made up thing. It's just not. It's impossible.
Yeah, but at the same time, I understand why. If there are articles and studies and papers that are published by parties who are getting consultancy fees from people like Bill, Melinda, and Gates indirectly, then obviously people stop believing in papers. So how are you going to discern who's being paid, who's not being paid, who's not lying, who has integrity? It's difficult to say. So and especially if Corona didn't really didn't really have much of it didn't cause symptoms. And if you never had this, like you never suffered directly, because I had actually clots as well. I had a clot. I experienced everything in the spectrum: brain inflammation, heart inflammation, and I also had a blood clot. So I had everything that I was supposed to have, like by paper. So I know that it is real because it happened to me. But there are people who didn't experience it. So yeah, so I think so. I also noticed that you said the word bioweapon. Why do you think it was a bioweapon?
Well, just because at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, I mean, it's already been established that they were performing gain of function research on SARS-CoV-2 or just SARS viruses, and they've been doing it over also in the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in the United States, before Wuhan even. So Americans were manipulating these SARS viruses, trying to, uh, even with the spike protein, they were manipulating. So they've been doing this for a long time, but really the epicenter of the outbreak obviously was Wuhan, where they were performing this research. And there's multiple now scientists that have analyzed this virus, and it's pretty conclusive that it's not natural. It is a bioweapon. And this is also now even corroborated by the U.S. government. The U.S. Department of Energy released a report concluding it was likely a lab leak. It's now basically widely accepted that it was leaked from a lab.
You say it is widely accepted that it is leaked from a lab, or
Yeah, even
it
by
is
the government. Yeah.
okay. I mean, it was kind of obvious. It was kind of obvious, and this is not going to be posted on YouTube, so we can just say it. It was released. It was, yes, it was leaked. But for me, it's not clear. For me, it's clear that it is, yes, there is a there is a malicious intent. I know that we don't want to think about that. I think we have psychologically we have this tendency to believe that everyone, especially the governments, the rich people, when I say rich people, I mean the extreme rich people, they always want the good things, that they care about people. I don't know where that comes from, but I see a lot of people think that the governments or the elites, the celebrities, they want good things happen to us. They want what's the word? Not donation, when they help others. uh,
Philanthropy.
Philanthropy, yes. They want to do that, but it's really difficult for some reason to believe that there is a malicious and they think it's a coincidence or there was a mistake. But it's difficult for me. It is clear that there was malicious intent, and I'm just gonna say it, that I think that they wanted to kill as many people as possible, and it was released from the labs. And for me, one thing is still unclear. Was the virus, do you think that the virus was sort of leaked, like what's the word, like a human error? Because I heard that's so normal that it can happen like all the time. Is it true?
Yeah, lab leaks are very common. There's 300 of them have occurred since 2001. So many lab leaks every year worldwide. So it's very common that a pathogen can just leak. Now, I don't think this was unintentionally leaked. I think this was SARS-CoV-2 was intentionally leaked just because of the planning activities beforehand. They
Oh,
just had foreknowledge, like at the beginning of this interview, that event 201. They were preparing for this, so they knew it was coming.
but you said that they had this preparation in October, but I thought that it was leaked in September. No.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it might have been circulating around that time, but um, it maybe the event 201 was before October. But what I do remember 100% this event was before any news anybody knew anything about SARS-CoV-2. This was just before anything was in the media, anything was coming out of China. It was before all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
also, it is very suspicious that at the time there was this Wuhan competitions, right? There was a competitions, and everybody was there. So everybody came from all over the world, which meant they had to go back to their countries, which was kind of like a perfect case to spread everything. But that's just but obviously a lot of people, you didn't really need an event for something like this, to airborne virus to spread. But again, we don't have a lot of people die from the virus, but we have a lot of people, according to studies and many other studies, that show that died from the vaccine. Okay, so now what do we do? How do we hold people in charge accountable?
So what would need to happen is, right now it seems that almost all of the worldwide governments are still pushing the vaccines. I'm not aware of any country yet that has fully pulled them off and said they're dangerous. So it seems as if everyone is either afraid of something or they're still captured by pharmaceutical interests. So it could be monetary. It could be many reasons why these vaccines are still on the market. But uh, so it's key to vote people in that are against this pharmaceutical complex that's pushing dangerous drugs on people. It's pertinent to try and get those people into positions of power, like now we're seeing in the United States, possibly with R.F. Kennedy. Um, he's been a vocal advocate of removing these shots. He's called them dangerous, said they've killed a bunch of people. But that was before he started running for president, etc. So hopefully, in the United States, they'll be removed. They'll be labeled as dangerous. They've killed people, and then the whole world will follow suit and follow behind the lead of that. But only time will tell. That's why we have to keep putting out these studies. We have to keep sharing this information, and it's pertinent to get it on the mainstream media, like we talked about earlier. So then everybody sees it. Everybody has to see that they're damaging. Right now all they see is these terrible advertisements that don't even mention any risks. They just tell them to go get the shot. That's all they see. So they think it's just fine. nothing bad's happening, and they don't see any of the real studies. So many things need to change.
So I guess I got too much ahead of myself when I wanted to hold people accountable. First, the product needs to stop being administered into people. Okay. We're too much. Okay, I'm too much ahead. Um,
Well,
okay.
accountability will
Send them to
come.
jail.
Right, right. Well, it will come, but first, yeah, they have to be acknowledged, widely acknowledged that the products are bad. They're gonna try and escape any accountability. They'll say, "Oh, we were just following the recommendations. We didn't know they were bad. All these studies said it was good." So they're gonna try as hard as possible to avoid accountability. The only way that they would probably face accountability is if it was proven that the purpose of these shots were intentionally designed to harm people. That is the key thing that would need to be proven, for a lot of people to face accountability.
Do you think that's feasible?
It's going to be very hard. I think there would need to be the government and high level agencies would have to obtain documents from people like Bill Gates, World Economic Forum, all these universities. They're going to have to see, has anything, what have they been doing? Have they been talking about these vaccines? Have they been talking about anything about harming people or killing people? So, you would have to have legal authority to actually investigate these people.
Okay. And you have been also talking about other viruses and other labs that are working on gain of function.
Yeah, so for H5N1 bird flu, there's been gain of function research going on for decades. There's four operational biolabs that we're aware of now conducting bird flu gain of function experiments, including Erasmus Medical Center in the Netherlands, the Scripps Institute in California, University of Wisconsin Madison in Wisconsin in the United States, and the Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory in Athens, Georgia, in the United States. So these four biolabs are making H5N1, or at least have in the past, more transmissible, um, more deadly, and but they make it easier for the virus to infect humans. They change the specificity from avian receptors to human receptors. This, in my opinion, should be classified as bioterrorism because they're making pathogens more deadly for humans. I'm not sure what else this would qualify as. Um,
Just
it's
that
a
alone should be a proof that they were meant to harm. That just that alone should be enough to prove that is meant to harm human beings and immediately stop. I just don't understand what is. I guess it's too naive, but why is this still not? Why I don't know why is it still going on?
They get so much money. They've been doing it for so long. It actually was banned temporarily in 2014 because of this bird flu gain of function research. There was multiple lab accidents. There was like thousands of scientists saying it's a terrible idea, it needs to be stopped. And there was a pause on gain of function research temporarily in 2014, actually by Obama, the Obama administration. But then all of a sudden, they resumed it, I believe, in 2017. They said, "Oh, we'll be more careful this time," and made up a bunch of lies. And so now they're continuing it. There needs to be another, not just a pause. There has to be a ban, a moratorium on it, because there's no benefits to this. I mean, they say, yeah,
That's the ridiculous part. How are they justifying to make it infect humans better? They're making it infect humans better. The bats, they don't get sick. They don't get sick. They how are they gonna if you're not like in the same cave living with the bats for a long period of time, how are you gonna get it from the bats? Why did they make SARS-CoV-19 to be able to attach to a human body? Why did they make it like that? It just makes no sense. Why? It's the only reason is unless you want people to get sick and eventually die. I mean, this is what happened. It's just I don't understand why are they making it stick to human people. There's no basis, there's no justification, and this is you just listed them off. It's not just in one country; it's all over the world.
Yeah, it's all over the world. There's over 100 operational BSL-3, BSL-4 biosafety level. That's what that means. So biosafety level 4 is extremely high security. They have the most dangerous pathogens in the world that would just cause catastrophe. And there's so many of these just worldwide. There's so many of them in Africa, which was laid out by the Ministry of Defense actually in Russia. They held a briefing outlining all these labs, and guess who the funders, the sponsors of these African biolabs are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Clinton Foundation. So these guys are just monsters. I mean, this is terrible.
It's so
And
fun. It's kind of funny. It's funny. Like, what on earth do you have to do with one of them is a politician. The other is what? Like he is a tech guy, right? He made the Microsoft. What is the connection? Why are you all of a sudden interested in bioweapons? There's no like if I am interested in I don't know, in my subject matter or in something that is directly in my field of interest, then it's like, oh, that's natural. That makes sense. It just makes no sense. Why are you trying to do gain of function? It's absolutely no explanation. And why people are not laser focused on something that can directly harm us. Like if there's immediate danger to us, we immediately focus. That's our first thing, right? If somebody was going to attack you, you become really laser focused and you want to protect yourself. So this mechanism is not working.
right, right. It seems as if there's some people that care, but yeah, nobody's really worried about this. Nobody's in uproar. They'd rather worry about cow farts and methane increases, or they'd rather worry about stuff like that instead of completely immediate threats of the hundreds of biolabs that could release a bioweapon at any moment, at any time, either intentionally or unintentionally. So this whole thing needs to be shut down. It has to be cleared out. They have to go into each and every one of these, make sure they don't have any extremely dangerous pathogens that could get out. They should actually just remove these from the labs, dispose of them, just so there's no more risks that we have to worry about anymore. Now, the reason they conduct this research in their minds and their reasoning, what they say, is because then they'll learn or then they'll know what to look for when the natural version starts to infect humans. That's the only reason why they do it. They'll say, okay, well, if we can modify it to infect humans, that means it can happen in nature. But it's just stupid. I mean, this knowledge is not necessary when you're risking millions of deaths. You know, it's just
Exactly.
ridiculous.
It is stupid, and because it is stupid, it's a something that leads to you to think they're not stupid. So if they know, so which means they're doing it on purpose because they're definitely not stupid. And so if we can get into this for hours and hours, I'm really thankful for your time, and I want to take advantage of your generosity here. Can you tell me what you're doing with the McCullough Foundation, what your work, where people can find you?
Yeah, so please go follow, first of all, the McCullough Foundation on X. It's just McCullough Fund. That's the handle for that. And please visit our website, mcculloughfnd.org. What we do is, first of all, since we started a few years ago, we've completed and published around 20 scientific studies, um, basically exposing all the harms of these shots, um, trying to get these off the market and trying to expose the truth. So we've done that, and we're disseminating media about both public and physician education. You know, we're also participating in court cases, helping people out and winning those. And so we're doing a lot of things, and we only run on donations, right? So we're not selling products, to keep the operations going. We only run on these donations. So we would very much appreciate any donation you could give us. It'll keep us pumping out the studies and keeping up with the education we're pumping out. And so there's that. And then also please follow me on my personal account on X. It's just at NIC Hulscher.
Thank you very much. They might have one of the most billionaires behind them, but I believe in the power of people, the regular people. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.